November 15th, 1987, 10 Downing Street, 4:17 p.m. Princess Diana walked into the Prime Minister's study with fire in her eyes and a folder of photographs in her hands. For 6 years, Margaret Thatcher had been Britain's Iron Lady, the woman who never backed down, never showed weakness, never lost a political battle. But today, she was about to meet her match in a 26-year-old princess who had had enough of being told to stay out of politics. What started as a routine royal visit was about to become the most explosive confrontation in modern British political history. When Diana slammed the photographs on Thatcher's desk and said, "This is what your policies are doing to children," the most powerful woman in Britain was about to discover that there was someone even more formidable than the Iron Lady. But the real shock wasn't Diana's anger. It was what Thatcher said back that would haunt the princess for the rest of her life. The build-up to battle. October 1987. The homeless crisis. By autumn 1987, Diana had become increasingly involved in humanitarian work, particularly with homeless charities. Her visits to shelters and soup kitchens had opened her eyes to the devastating impact of Thatcher's policies on Britain's most vulnerable citizens. The final straw came during Diana's visit to Centrepoint, a homeless shelter in London. She met Sarah, a 16-year-old girl who had been living on the streets for 6 months after being thrown out of her council home. "Princess," Sarah said, tears streaming down her face. "They said there's no money for housing benefit anymore. They said I have to learn to stand on my own 2 feet. But I'm 16. I don't know how to stand on my own." Diana held the girl's hand as she continued. "I sleep in doorways. Men try to hurt me. I haven't eaten in 2 days. Is this what the Prime Minister means by making people independent?" That night, Diana couldn't sleep. She had seen poverty before, but never on this scale. Never so systematically created by government policy. She decided it was time to confront the woman responsible. The royal summons. November 10th, 1987. Diana makes her move. "This is Princess Diana. I need to speak with Mrs. Thatcher, today." The secretary was flustered. "Your Royal Highness, the Prime Minister's schedule is quite full. Perhaps we could arrange something for next month." "No. Today. Tell her it's about her homeless policies. Tell her I have something she needs to see." An hour later, Downing Street called back. "The Prime Minister can see you this afternoon at 4 p.m. She asks what materials you'll be bringing." "Evidence," Diana replied coldly. But Diana had no idea that Thatcher had been preparing for this confrontation for months. The Iron Lady's preparation. November 15th, 1987. Thatcher's battle plan. Margaret Thatcher had been monitoring Diana's increasing political activities with growing concern. The princess's popularity was threatening the government's narrative about economic policy. "She's becoming a problem," Thatcher told her advisors that morning. "The public listens to her more than they listen to us. Her homeless visits are undermining our welfare reforms. What do you suggest, Prime Minister?" "I suggest we remind her of her place. She's a princess, not a politician. It's time she learned the difference." Thatcher spent the morning reviewing files on Diana, her marriage problems, her emotional instability, her breach of royal protocol. She was preparing ammunition for a battle she intended to win. But she had underestimated her opponent. The confrontation begins. 4:17 p.m. The princess enters the lion's den. When Diana arrived at Downing Street, she was escorted directly to Thatcher's study. The Prime Minister stood behind her desk, rigid and formal. "Your Royal Highness," Thatcher said with icy politeness. "To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure?" Diana didn't waste time with pleasantries. She walked directly to Thatcher's desk and slammed down a folder of photographs. "This," Diana said, her voice shaking with controlled rage, "is what your policies are doing to children." Thatcher glanced at the photos. Homeless teenagers sleeping in doorways, children begging on streets, families living in their cars. "I see photographs of people who need to take more responsibility for their lives," Thatcher replied coldly. "Responsibility?" Diana's voice rose. "Sarah Mitchell is 16 years old. She's been homeless for 6 months because you cut housing benefits. How is that her responsibility? Perhaps if Sarah Mitchell had made better choices." "She's 16, Diana exploded. "She's a child. How can you sit there in your comfortable office and blame children for being homeless?" Thatcher's expression didn't change. "Your Royal Highness, with respect, you don't understand economics. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made for the greater good." That's when Diana said something that made the Iron Lady's blood run cold. The royal ultimatum, 4:25 p.m. Diana's nuclear option. "Mrs. Thatcher," Diana said, her voice deadly calm, "I want you to understand something. I am the Princess of Wales. I am the future Queen of England, and I am telling you that your policies are destroying this country." Thatcher finally looked up from the photographs. "Your Royal Highness, the monarchy does not involve itself in politics. The monarchy involves itself in whatever threatens the well-being of British people. And you, Mrs. Thatcher, are threatening the well-being of British people." "I beg your pardon?" Diana leaned forward, placing her hands on Thatcher's desk. "You want to know what I understand about economics? I understand that every homeless child I meet makes your government look cruel. Every mother I see choosing between heating and food makes your policies look heartless. Every teenager sleeping rough makes your reforms look like failures." Thatcher's composure was starting to crack. "Princess Diana, you are overstepping. And here's what you need to understand," Diana continued relentlessly. "I have access to every television camera in Britain. I have the attention of every newspaper. When I speak, people listen. When I'm photographed with homeless children, people see. When I criticize government policy, people believe me." The threat was clear. Diana was declaring war on Thatcher's agenda. But Thatcher's response would shock even Diana. The Iron Lady strikes back. 4:28 p.m. Thatcher's devastating counterattack. Margaret Thatcher stood up slowly, her famous handbag clutched in her hands like a weapon. "Your Royal Highness," she said, her voice like ice, "let me tell you what I understand. I understand that you are an emotionally unstable young woman, having public marital problems, who thinks her celebrity gives her political authority." Diana's face went white. "How dare you?" "I dare because I am the elected Prime Minister of this country, while you are a princess who married into relevance. I have spent my entire life earning the right to make these decisions. You have spent your life posing for photographs. That's not. I also understand," Thatcher continued ruthlessly, "that your humanitarian work is really just an escape from your failed marriage. You're using homeless children as therapy for your own problems." Diana was speechless with shock and rage, and most importantly, Thatcher delivered her final blow. "I understand that when the public tires of your drama and your affairs and your emotional breakdowns, they will still need a government that makes hard decisions based on reality, not feelings." The room fell silent. The two most powerful women in Britain stared at each other across the desk. Then Diana did something that no one had ever done to Margaret Thatcher, the royal humiliation. Diana reached into her purse and pulled out a small tape recorder. She placed it on Thatcher's desk and pressed play. A child's voice filled the room. "Princess Diana, will you tell the Prime Minister that I'm hungry? Will you tell her that I sleep in the cold? Will you tell her that I just want to go home?" It was Sarah, the 16-year-old homeless girl Diana had met at Centrepoint. Thatcher's face remained impassive, but her hands tightened on her handbag. Diana played a second recording. "Princess, my mum can't afford to feed us since they stopped our benefits. Can you ask Mrs. Thatcher why she wants children to be hungry?" Then a third. "Princess Diana, when I grow up, I want to help children like Mrs. Thatcher helps children. But I want to help them properly." Diana stopped the tape and looked directly at Thatcher. "These children don't understand politics, Mrs. Thatcher. They don't understand economics. They just understand that they're cold and hungry and homeless, and they understand that you have the power to help them, but you choose not to." Thatcher's legendary composure was finally cracking. "This is emotional manipulation. This is reality. The reality you refuse to see from your ivory tower." Diana picked up the tape recorder. "I'm going to play these recordings on television tomorrow night. I'm going to let the British people hear what children think of your policies, and then we'll see who they believe." For the first time in her political career, Margaret Thatcher was speechless, but Diana wasn't finished humiliating the Iron Lady. The final blow. 4:35 p.m., the knockout punch. Diana opened her purse again and pulled out a letter. She placed it on Thatcher's desk. "This is my resignation from all royal patronages," Diana said quietly. "If you continue these policies, I will resign from royal duties entirely and dedicate my life to opposing your government." Thatcher's eyes widened. A royal resignation would be a constitutional crisis that could bring down her government. "You can't." "I can, and I will. Unless you reverse the housing benefit cuts and increase funding for homeless services by Christmas." "That's blackmail. That's politics, Mrs. Thatcher. I learned from the best." Diana moved toward the door, then turned back one final time. "Oh, and Mrs. Thatcher, when you called me emotionally unstable and said I married into relevance, you might want to remember that this emotionally unstable princess just outmaneuvered the Iron Lady. What does that say about you?" Diana walked out, leaving Thatcher alone with the photographs of homeless children and the echoing voices of their pleas for help. The aftermath. November 16, 1987. The government backs down. Within 24 hours of Diana's visit, Downing Street announced a review of housing benefit policies. By December, £50 million in additional funding had been allocated for homeless services. The official statement said the changes were part of ongoing policy refinements, but everyone in Westminster knew the truth. The Princess of Wales had forced the Iron Lady to blink. Diana's threat to resign was never carried out, but it didn't need to be. Thatcher had learned that there were some battles even the Iron Lady couldn't win. The political earthquake. December 1987. The power shift. Diana's confrontation with Thatcher marked a seismic shift in British politics. For the first time, someone had successfully challenged the Prime Minister's authority, and won. The homeless funding increase was followed by other policy reversals. Child poverty programs were expanded, healthcare funding was increased, education cuts were reversed. Each reversal was presented as government initiative, but political insiders knew the truth. The Princess of Wales had become the most powerful political figure in Britain, without holding any office. Thatcher's grip on absolute power had been broken by a 26-year-old royal who refused to stay silent. The Iron Lady's private admission. January 1988, Thatcher's secret confession. 3 months after her humiliation, Margaret Thatcher confided her true feelings to her close advisor. "I underestimated her. I thought she was just another pretty royal who would retreat at the first sign of real confrontation. Instead, she fought me and won. She used emotion against logic, Prime Minister. Hardly a fair fight." "No," Thatcher replied quietly. "She used compassion against cruelty, and she was right to do so." It was the closest the Iron Lady ever came to admitting defeat. The lasting impact. 1987-1990. Diana's political legacy. Diana's victory over Thatcher established her as a political force that could not be ignored. Her humanitarian work took on new significance, knowing that she had the power to force government policy changes. The confrontation also changed Diana personally. She had discovered that her platform could be used for more than charity work. It could be used to challenge power and fight injustice. Most importantly, she had learned that even the most powerful people could be held accountable if someone was brave enough to confront them. The truth revealed. Diana's confrontation with Margaret Thatcher was more than a clash between two strong women. It was a battle between two different visions of Britain. Thatcher represented cold, rational policy-making that prioritized economic efficiency over human suffering. Diana represented compassionate leadership that put people before politics. The fact that Diana won this battle proved that in a democracy, compassion can be more powerful than authority, that moral force can overcome political force, and that sometimes the most effective politician is the one who refuses to play politics. Margaret Thatcher was the Iron Lady, strong, unbending, uncompromising. But iron, no matter how strong, can be melted by enough heat, and Diana's passion for justice burned hotter than iron could withstand. The ultimate irony, the greatest irony of this confrontation, is that it made both women stronger. Thatcher learned that effective leadership sometimes requires listening to voices of conscience, even when they come from unexpected sources. Diana learned that her platform could be used to create real change, not just awareness. In trying to humiliate each other, they ended up creating a new model for how power and compassion could work together in British politics. Sometimes the best victories are the ones that transform both the winner and the loser.